You're watching News Central now on News Central Television. I am Lekon Onobanjo. The top stories at this hour. NNPCL announces 125,000 barrels per day Warri Refinery facility has commenced production. Rivers State Governor Fubara presents 1.1 trillion naira budget to Okujombo-led assembly. Police fire tear gas at protests against abductions in Kenya. Details to come your way shortly. News Central now at this hour begins in the oil sector. The 125,000 barrels per day Warri Refinery and Petrochemicals Company in Warri Delta State is now up and running. The Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Mele Kyari, disclosed this during a tour of the facility on Monday. Among the tour team was the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Farouk Ahmed. The petrochemical plant, which is located at the Ekman, Uvie and Ubeji in Warri, was built to produce 13,000 million tons per annum of polypropylene and 18,000 MTA of carbon black. Commissioned in 1978 and managed by the NNPCL, the WRPC was built to supply markets in the south and southwestern regions of Nigeria. Meanwhile, President Bala Tinubu has expressed his profound joy at the reopening of the Warri Refinery and Petrochemical Company by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, describing it as another remarkable achievement in 2024 that has strengthened Nigerians' hope in his administration. The Warri Refinery returned to operation weeks after NNPC Limited restarted the 60,000 barrels per day at the Port Harcourt Refinery in November. With Warri Refining and Petrochemical Company going into operation after several years of inactivity, President Tinubu has once again expressed his administration's determination to ramp up local refining capacity and make Nigeria a hub for downstream industrial activities in Africa. To help us understand this, we're joined by investment banker and accountant Femi Oladeyin. Thank you so much, Mr. Oladeyin. Okay, I think we do not have Femi Oladeyin. Mr. Femi Oladeyin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, finally, we're able to have you on board. Compliments of the season. Now, out of the blues, just like the Port Harcourt Refinery, the Warri Refinery has commenced operation. First, what are your thoughts on this?
Thank you for having me on the show, and Merry Christmas to you and the viewers, and Happy New Year in advance as well. It is a continuation of a rehabilitation program that had started by the NNPC actually a few years ago, prior to the coming of Mele Kyari as the current GMD. And that rehabilitation process has recently just gotten to the point where it appears that some of the facilities are beginning to come on stream. Again, I would remind viewers of one of the things that I've always said on this show, that a refinery is a very complicated, complicated production process that includes a wide range of, processes that gets to the point where you get crude oil. From crude oil, you keep refining in stages and in tranches until the point where you get to the final products. Usually when a refinery has not been working for a long time, at the time when the refinery restarts production, there is a significant calibration process that is required to ensure that the refinery is operational and works properly. So what we are seeing here again is the start of production in the refinery, in the Warri Refinery. They've showed us very good videos so that there are no doubts as to where the products were coming from.
Okay.
It's positive news. I do not believe again that we're going to see significant product outflows for the next couple of weeks as they calibrate and recalibrate the refinery and bring it to full production.
Okay, but then, of course, the Warri Refinery, 125,000 barrels per day capacity, the PH refinery with a combined crude processing capacity of 210,000 barrels per day. With the Dangote refinery already in operation, it seems like the bad days are over in Nigeria's downstream sector. Am I correct?
So we had an interesting conversation during the Christmas break with one of my friends, and his comment was that this is probably the first time in our history as a country that there's not been a fuel scarcity around Christmas time, at least in the last 20, 30 years that I can remember. And it's symbolic of the fact that we're now a producer and a refiner of crude oil into refined products. And that's what happens like when you have a country that is able to produce what it consumes. The intention has to be that as you're able to produce what you consume, and if you are a comparative advantaged producer, then you would be able to do that as a cost that's cheaper than people that don't have the same comparative advantages, and you are able to pass those advantages to the consumers of the product.
Okay, well, what might this administration be doing differently? Because a lot of things you've mentioned in terms of reviving these either to moribund refineries that the past administrations couldn't do. We need to understand that point.
I think it would be very unfair to give credit for the restart of these refineries to the Bala Tinubu administration. In as much as we had complaints and all of that, the process of rehabilitating the refinery started during the Buhari regime. The first process was supposed to be a private sector-led process that was truncated in 2018, while the NNPC stepped in 2019 to start looking at, rehabilitating the refineries themselves. So I don't think that there is any refinery in the world that hasn't produced in 20 years that suddenly starts producing in 19 months or in 18 months for how long we've had this government. This is a fallout of work that has started prior to now, and we're simply just seeing the results of that work. And again, look, it's important to also mention that until the refineries have run for a decent amount of time, you can't also really say whether they've been fixed properly and whether the bad days are behind them. One of the problems we always had in the past was that the refineries were not properly maintained. Nigeria had a very poor maintenance culture. A refinery is supposed to be shut down probably almost every 9 to 12 months for a turnaround maintenance of the cleaning of the valves, recalibration of the furnaces and all of that. And if you don't do that, then the refinery is prone to breakdowns. So one of the biggest tests for the NNPC as it continues to restart these refineries is to ensure that they continue to produce. And the only way that is going to happen is first we'll establish the quality of work that has been done to get us thus far. And secondly, the quality of aftercare maintenance that they have for those refineries.
Even with these stories coming in, Femi, a lot of people still do not believe that this is a reality. I mean, there have been speculations around the capacity and the frequency, including the quality of what the PH refinery, is producing as we speak. So are there any guarantees? You've talked about the capacity and the frequency in passing, but then in terms of quality, are there any guarantees that what is being produced domestically by these two refineries right now is standard, is of quality?
Look, I mean, the quality control process of a refinery is a very boring process, but it's standardized. The quality of the products, there are ways that we measure its density, it's the level of sulfur that is included in as part of the refined product, is also the look and feel as well. So all of those things, you can always quality check. So because it's a process, if you have good quality control processes that go along the way from the beginning up until the end, the tendency is that you would be able to isolate where the product is going to be off-spec. So a refinery doesn't suddenly produce off-spec product. If you are monitoring it from stage to stage, you would be able to identify the places where the off-specs actually coming? Is it during the dosing plant? Is it at the catalytic converter? There are processes that happen in a refinery that allow you to isolate what the refinery is producing at each point in time. Now, we call it a refinery because when you put in crude oil into a refinery at the beginning of the process, there are several products at each point of refining that come out of it. So there's naphtha, there's diesel, there's AGO, and it's a dependent. The dependency here is the level of refining that you do, and we're saying that look, this is something that can easily be measured at each stage of the process until you get to the final stage, which is producing PMS, which is the most refined part of the crude cracking process.
Okay, so finally, is Nigeria now edging towards energy sufficiency, efficiency, and of course security?
Look, I mean, we currently consume post subsidy probably about 30 to 35 million liters of petroleum products a day. Today, with 210,000 in Port Harcourt, well, I know that one of the refineries hasn't started producing properly, but there's this Port Harcourt refinery, there's the Warri Refinery, there's the Dangote Refinery. Easily between these three refineries, you could be refining today between 600,000 and 700,000 barrels of crude a day. That is significant volumes. That tells you that we're producing, give or take, about 70 million to 80 million liters of petroleum products. So at some point, we're going to have a glut in the market. And we started to see Dangote's drop prices. We're expecting that as NNPC also continues to produce, prices are going to drop as a result of supply, even though there's a flaw to that price drop, which is driven by the exchange rate, the cost of crude on the market, and of course the cost of cracking the crude into petroleum products. But the point here is when it comes to PMS, AGO, which are the main running fuels that we use in Nigeria, we are getting to a point of efficiency and sufficiency. Now, but as a whole, as an entire value chain for energy, of course, you know that we're still miles and miles away. I doubt if the studio is not running on generator as we speak now.
Now, that's a big one. Femi Laden, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on the news.
Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas to you.
Same to you too, sir. Away from that, the Nigerian Presidency has demanded that the Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed retract what it called his inflammatory statement on the tax reform bill. Tinubu's special advisor on media and public communication, Sunday Dari, stated this in a post he shared on his X handle on Monday. Dari was responding to Mohammed's statement from Wednesday, December 25, 2024, during a Christmas homage by the Christian community at the government house in Bauchi. The governor opposed Tinubu's tax reform policies, describing them as anti-northern and favoring only a section of the country. He warned that if these policies continued, the northern region would show its true colors in response. Now, we tell you that Nigerian President Bala Tinubu has extended his condolences to the U.S. government and people on the passing of former President Jimmy Carter, who died at the age of 100. President Tinubu praised Carter's legacy, saying he showed how to remain relevant and impactful after leaving office. According to Tinubu, Carter was a beacon of service to humanity, dedicating his post-presidency to peace, democracy, and eradicating tropical diseases. President Tinubu fondly recalled Carter's contributions to Nigeria, particularly his efforts in eradicating guinea worm disease and river blindness. He also reflected on Carter's historic 1978 visit to Nigeria, which marked a pivotal moment in U.S.-Africa relations. Meanwhile, U.S. Presidents Joe Biden and Donald Trump are leading the American people to mourn the former U.S. President and Nobel Peace Prize winner Jimmy Carter. Carter, who lived longer than any president in history, died on Sunday afternoon at his home in Plains, Georgia. Biden described him as a man of principle, faith, and humility, while Trump said all Americans owe Carter a debt of gratitude. Biden praised Carter's simple decency and called him an exceptional leader. Earlier, Ejike Okpa, our global affairs analyst, spoke to us on these developments.
Was the kind of president that I always liked, because when he left office, he remained relevant. He didn't get so much into the politics like we have former presidents do now. He traveled the world, and part of it was, to spread the value of democracy and commit to things like you say, Guinea worm, and so many other things that former American president never did. And he was one person that in 1978, I think he visited Nigeria, and he kept coming back to Nigeria. I think even after the World Cup in 1994, there was something, he came in and he went to Abakaliki, and, part of a medical mission on this public health issue. And then in America, he was committed to building homes. Habitat for Humanity was a program that it was strongly identified with him, and that was going into poor neighborhoods and participating and in actually building homes, because apart from being a farmer, he was also a carpenter. He made chairs. So, I've always liked him for that, and I was fortunate to meet him. But I will show you on the screen. I happen to be, one person that has a paperweight that has a signature on it, and when I went to the center in Georgia. So I have that liking to him because he never played whether it was, of course he's a Democrat, but he saw things from the humanistic point of view, and he made himself available. So he died at
We pause with these stories for now, but when we return, Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara presents 1.1 trillion naira budgets to Okojumbo-led assembly. Details will come your way in a short bit. Join us again. Many thanks for staying with us. We now tell you that the prosecution counsel to Nigeria's Inspector General of Police in a case filed against popular social media influencer Olamide Thomas has requested for additional 24 hours to prepare for arguments on the defendant's bail application. Thomas, who was seen in a viral video throwing insults at the IGP and the son of the president, Tinubu, during the fourth-year anniversary of the NSAS protest against police brutality, was arraigned on charges bordering on cyber stalking and several others. Our correspondent, Joshua Marai, was at the court and filed in this report.
Our visibly cheerful Olamide Thomas outside the courtroom at the Federal High Court in Abuja, despite her case being stalled. Olamide, who has been detained in one of Nigeria's correctional facilities since December the 25th, remained in good spirit. She is facing charges of alleged cyberbullying and 3 other related offenses stemming from accusation of publicly throwing insults at the Inspector General of Police and son of the President, Tinubu. As the case resumed hearing, the prosecution counsel representing the Inspector General of Police requested a 24-hour extension to prepare arguments opposing Olamide's bail application. This request, though reluctantly granted, sparked reaction from the defense counsel.
We were not comfortable with that. 2 reasons. One, the defendant has been in custody since 13th of December 2024. Her liberty is at stake. She's been incarcerated. She was taken to the correctional center since 20th of December 2024. So, and moreover, this is a vacation season, so the prosecutor is expected to follow up with every process that is every matter that is handling.
The case between the Inspector General of Police and Olamide Thomas has come to a pause today, but however, tomorrow we are expecting a fresh round of debate from the prosecuting and the defense counsel before Honorable Justice Emeka Nwite of the High Court for the bail hearing of Ms. Olamide. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imadai.
Earlier, a lawyer and public affairs analyst, Justice Ojiano, spoke to us on this development.
I think that is very, very unfortunate. But again, in the famous case of IGP and Gopa, it is said that the defender has to be given sufficient time and facility in order to be able to prepare for his case. And sometimes the prosecution too, they enjoy such privileges. It is possible that sometimes the way the police will say, or their lawyers, the prosecution lawyers will say that the matter was, their office was intimidated, but the particular prosecutor in charge, the particular lawyer was not given the folder. Generally, in order to reply to motions, generally, we usually take 5 days to 7 days. So if they are already aware, or if the office is already aware from the 20th of December, I think that it is very, very wrong and very, very unfair for that to be an excuse that is being sought by the prosecution in this situation. But since what they are asking for is just 24 hours, I pray that I hope that the court has obliged them so that the hearing can actually take place tomorrow in order for the court to actually rule one way or the other. I am not in a way, I can't preempt the court. I can't say that the court will grant her bail or the court will not grant her bail. But that the court will choose to rule one way or the other after weighing its own discretion whether to grant her bail. And if it's granting her bail, on what terms it will be seeking to grant her bail.
Away from that, some traders in Masaka, Nasarawa State, located in the Kogi local government area of the state, have called for an immediate investigation over the inferno that destroyed a significant portion of the market. The fire, which ravaged major sections of the markets, caused extensive damage to properties and goods valued at millions of naira. Again, our correspondent, Joshua Marai, visited the scene and filed in this report.
Popular Masaka market in Karo local government area of Nasarawa State, once a bustling hub for traders and consumers alike, has been reduced to ruins following a fire that broke out late Saturday. The inferno, which destroyed a significant portion of the market, has left traders devastated as they count their losses. Many lament that years of hard work and investment have all been lost to the flames.
May government help me. May they help me. I don't get anything. As I did, I get old women. My mother, where they help? She dey sick. I mean, they help her. They do everything. I mean, be breadwinner of the family. I don't get anything. I get 4 children. No helper unless God.
Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin. Allah ya kawo mana kaddara kasuwan Masaka ta kama wuta ran Juma'a da dare misalin karfe 10 na dare, kuma muna neman taimako da Allah, kuma ba wani ya so taimaka mana, kuna so taimako na Allah da ubangiji Annabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah ya taimake mu, Allah ya sare mana kasuwan da dawo yana take da. Muna neman taimako gurin Allah, kuma manyan shugabannin mu Allah ya sare su ba mu goyon baya kasuwan nan mu samu daurin gindi yanda kasuwan za ta dawo normal yanda take da. Yau da fatan al'umma na su ji jama'a kowanne su ji.
Some traders, however, called on the state government to investigate the cause of the fire that raised down a significant portion of the market, alleging that there might be more to the incident than meets the eye.
We cannot say that this is electric. We cannot say that people are cooking inside the market. People are not cooking because the time the fire started, nobody was inside the market. But we cannot tell this is how the fire started. So my message to them is that they should look into this case.
Traders who lost their goods in the market fire have once again renewed calls for assistance following the devastating impact of the incident. They also say that the alternative marketplace provided by the state government is too expensive for them. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Away from Nasarawa to Rivers State, where the governor, Siminalayi Fubara, has presented the 2025 budget proposal of 1.1 trillion naira to the Victor Okojumbo-led Rivers State House of Assembly. The appropriation bill, tagged Budget of Inclusive Growth and Development, was presented during plenary on Monday. In a speech, Governor Fubara described the 2025 budget as a blueprint for consolidating the achievements of his administration in 2024, while charting a new course for sustainable development. Highlighting the performance of the 800 billion naira 2024 budget, the governor stated that Rivers State recorded significant milestones, particularly in economic growth and revenue generation.
Today, we are presenting a budget that will empower us to consolidate the past gain, stimulate further investment into our economy, and take our dear state to the next level of economic growth, social progress, and shared prosperity. Mr. Speaker, permit me to express my profound gratitude to the good people of Rivers State for their unwavering support, prayers, and trust over the last year and 7 months. I have had the privilege and honor to be a chief servant
I wish to also thank Mr. Speaker and the honorable members of the Rivers State House of Assembly for standing with us and the people of Rivers State at this auspicious time. Together, let us continue to work towards building a better and more prosperous future for our dear state. As I present the 2025 appropriation bill to this honorable House for consideration.
In a related development, Kogi State Governor Usman Ododo has signed the 2025 appropriation bill into law at the Glass House, the Government House in Lokoja. The 2025 budget estimates totaling 582.4 billion naira represent a 43.34% increase from the revised 2024 budget of 406.3 billion naira. The budget is expected to address key sectors such as education, healthcare, infrastructure, agriculture, and economic development. While presenting the appropriation bill for the governor's accent, the Speaker, Kogi State House of Assembly, Ali Umar, appealed to the governor to spread the budget of inclusivity to all the state constituencies for an enhanced development in the state. We'll now tell you that the African Development Bank is set to start releasing a $2.2 billion fund for the development of special agro-industrial process zones in Nigeria. Director General of AFDB Nigeria Office, Abdul Kamara, made this known during a media chat. Specifically from next year, 2025, he said they will see contracts signed and mobilization, including construction on site, will start in some states. Of course, he said, not all the states will start together. He said the money would be used for the development of agro-industrial hubs where processing will happen, aggregation centers, and agricultural transformation programs. The developmental economist said, though the special agro-industrial process zones was approved by the AFDB board in 2021, the project is picking up after startup delays attributed to several factors. The Nigerian Securities and Exchange Commission has introduced stricter rules for digital asset promotions to curb unregulated cryptocurrency advertising. Under revised guidelines, virtual asset service providers must secure SEC approval before hiring third-party marketers or influencers. The new rules, effective June 30, 2025, also require influencers or finfluencers to obtain a no-objection authorization from the SEC before promoting crypto products. Influencers must verify the licensing of promoted companies and disclose paid endorsements. Non-compliance could result in fines of at least 10 million naira or up to 3 years in prison. The SEC emphasized its commitment to monitoring crypto ads and penalizing violations to protect investors from unauthorized promotions. Earlier, Silas Umekwe, author, Crypto Investors Playbook, and an online business consultant, gave us more insights on this development.
Because of the whole requirements that is needed, we expect that it's going to bring about additional operational costs, and extra administrative responsibilities for VASPs, right? That's virtual asset service providers. It's going to bring in a lot of that. But the truth of the matter is we need some sanity in the space. We need some sanity in the space. If you're ready for the business, yes, come in and say, okay, yes, you're ready for it. And if you're not ready, just sit down and do some other thing. Because this industry is one that a lot of people are coming in. It's uncharted waters, basically. A lot of people are scared. A lot of people are skeptical. While a lot of people are just jumping in blindly, following who they think is their messiah, who they think is their influencer. We have a cult-like followership in Nigeria. Once you follow somebody, you just don't even want to point out something wrong that is doing. So for virtual asset service providers, I think we just have to tighten our belts. We just have to brace up. We just have to sit up and align with the practices that the SEC is providing.
Earlier this month, during a courtesy visit of delegates from the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention The Lagos State Commissioner for Environment, Tokunbo Wahab, spoke about the environmental surveillance program. He highlighted the link between environmental and public health, emphasizing Lagos' commitment to addressing both sectors. News Central's Bettina Nweli reports.
The Theme Plus agenda of Governor Jide Sanwo-Olu's administration, the second pillar, health and environment, is crucial. It is almost impossible to separate the effects of the environment from the health sector. The Lagos State Commissioner for the Environment and Water Resources reiterated that fixing the basics in the environmental ecosystem will undoubtedly reduce the challenges faced in the health sector.
And so for these multi-pathogen surveillance to kick off from mono pathogens we had from polio, we have some 5 priority pathogens which SDCs is signposting for us to look into. One of them is cholera, typhoid, hepatitis E, and plus measles, and SARS-CoV-2. We're also looking at the pox and smaller pathogens that are peculiar to our own environment, which we know are public in the programs of our community. Just to emphasize that it's a multi-sectoral approach also. And we know from the, especially for Ebola, COVID, and even Mpox, that no single sector can adequately sufficiently control public health challenges.
The Commissioner reflected on past collaborations between Lagos State's Environment and Health Ministries, citing their coordinated response to the cholera outbreak, while welcoming the ESPN program as a critical initiative for detecting pathogens, monitoring disease patterns, and serving as an early warning system for outbreaks in the future.
You can't separate the effects of the environment on the health ecosystem. The Ministry of Environment asked us to work assiduously with the Ministry of Health. When we have a cholera outbreak and other outbreaks, we have to work collaboratively and jointly to solve all the problems. It's whatever we are going to fix that becomes a challenge for them in the health sector. So this multi-pathogen approach is only welcome.
As the festivities continue, prioritizing the health and well-being of all Lagosians cannot be overemphasized. While the joy and significance of this season cannot be overstated, the Lagos State government advocates an embrace of good environmental sanitation practices by the residents during and after the Yuletide in order to ensure a sustainable environment. In Lagos, for News Central, I am Bettina Nweli.
Now, as 2024 comes to an end, many Nigerians are reflecting on the goals they set at the start of the year. It's been a challenging 12 months for young people, no doubt, with economic pressures and personal hurdles testing their resolve. News Central's Chidima Ona takes a closer look at how young Nigerians coped with their 2024 resolutions and what their plans are for the year ahead.
The idea of New Year's resolution has always been popular, but for young Nigerians, 2024 presented unique challenges. Rising inflation, high unemployment, and social uncertainties made achieving goals even harder. After a challenging year, many young Nigerians are focusing on smaller and more flexible goals in 2025.
To achieve my goals for 2025, I want to be more intentional because I feel like I wasn't very intentional in 2024 and that affected most of my goals. I feel like in 2024 I was a bit small-minded, so to achieve my goals in 2025, I would like to be more open-minded and think big.
On the busy streets of Lagos, we asked young people about their 2024 resolutions and plans for the coming year.
But actually, when I entered this January, my goal is to travel out from this Nigeria. But unfortunately, I didn't achieve it. So I have to work hard to achieve the dream. I think that's the solution. I would love to do more in my area of work. Yeah, I want to improve more on it. And I also want to move closer to God. That's priority, my number one priority.
For many, the inability to stick to rigid plans was a challenge to achieving their set goals in 2024. Psychologist Samuel Preswell explains why resolutions often fail.
It's unrealistic time frame. You know, when they said 2 months, but in 3 months, something that should take a year, they just want to make it in 2 months. It's actually not going to work. For instance, I have 10 things I want to achieve in 2025. This one comes first, this one comes second, this one comes third. So I should be able to prioritize and take each of them one after the other.
Despite the setbacks of 2024, the resilience of young Nigerians stands out. Their ability to adapt, learn, and remain hopeful in the face of difficulties offers a bright outlook for 2025. The question remains, with renewed strategies and determination, will 2025 be the year they achieve their dreams? In Lagos, reporting for News Central, I am Chidima Ona.
Coming up on the news, police fired tear gas at a protest against abductions in Kenya. We have the details and we'll bring it to you in a short while. Join us again. The news continues in East Africa, where police in Kenya have arrested opposition politician and several other protesters during street demonstrations calling for an end to alleged abductions that recently targeted young government critics. The protest comes following revelations by Kenya former Vice President Rigathi Gachagua disclosed details about a rogue unit that is reportedly involved in the abduction of Kenyans. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights on Thursday raised concerns over a growing number of alleged kidnappings of government critics, saying that the total number of such cases stands at 82 since the anti-government protests began in June. On Saturday, President William Ruto said the government would stop the abductions so that young people live in peace. To discuss this, we are joined by Rungu Houghton, Amnesty International Kenya Section Director, Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you so much, Mr. Houghton, for joining us on the news.
Thank you very much for having me. I have to apologize that I'm actually taking this call in one of Kenya's police stations as we are seeking the release of at least 20 protesters in this particular police station.
Oh, okay, we are going to get to that, but I'd like to get your thoughts on the revelations around abductions of government critics. How bad is the situation and how true is that particular allegation?
The statistics that you've just read out from the Kenya National Commission of Human Rights are very shocking to us as Amnesty International and indeed to the country. More than 83 persons have been abducted. These are not regular arrests. They are incidents in which individuals who are not, in many cases, identified as police officers, they do not use marked vehicles, but that they are essentially arresting or rather, they are essentially picking up and kidnapping individuals who are suspected to be critical of the government. This last week has seen no less than seven actually, as of today, 9 cases of abductions. And it is for that reason that many of us have begun to say that we need to stop the spate, the wave of enforced disappearances.
So how significant do you think these situations are in the context of Kenya's Human Rights Index?
They're very significant. In fact, about 3 weeks ago, we learned from Civicus, the World Alliance of Civil Society, that Kenya had been downgraded to a repressed society. We had actually dropped several points in terms of democracy and human rights. And it is actions like this that is essentially jeopardizing our standing as a anchor state and a rule of law society within this particular region. So we have to, I think, as human rights defenders, as citizens, as the international community, demand that there be no further slide towards the misuse of state power and also the abuse of human rights.
Okay, so earlier on you talked about you and your team trying to secure the release of those who have been arrested. What's the situation like now?
Well, this morning, several citizens declared that they were going to organize demonstrations and solidarity marches across many of Kenya's counties, like the Nigerian states. And we observed with a number of organizations several protests taking place in at least 5 of our counties. Over 53 people were arrested. In some cases, they were tear gassed severally before they were arrested, and we saw several injuries, both assaults and also tear gas injuries that are consistent with being hit by a tear gas canister. Several people, 53, have been now arrested. They are in several police stations, including a current sitting senator and a former presidential aspirant who you're seeing on your screen at the moment. That senator in the red there is currently in a police station. And we are very concerned because the government, the police are neglecting or refusing to charge them, but simply holding them overnight. So we're here with a battery of lawyers to demand their release, or at least to be told what were the charges that they're being preferred against them.
Now, you're saying that the police are reluctant in charging them to court. We also saw in the news whereby, they are being accused, most especially the government is being accused of sponsoring a rogue unit in the kidnappings of government critics. How convinced are you looking at this allegation leveled against the government?
Amnesty International and the Human Rights Watch and an alliance of the Police Reforms Working Group have been documenting not just the excessive use of force against people expressing their right to assembly, and assembly is guaranteed under our constitution, but also looking at issues of abductions, cases where people have been enforcibly disappeared, in some cases up to 32 days without any right to trial, legal representation, medical assistance, and in many cases denied adequate amounts of food and water. The allegations of a special unit that has been operating outside of the chain of command has been there and has been very concerning for many of us. So we have been calling for the disbandment of that unit, the holding of the officers and the commanders who have been abducting Kenyans or brutalizing Kenyans on the streets of several of our towns to be held accountable. And lastly, we've been calling for a commission, an international commission of inquiry that would actually determine the basis upon which Kenyans' rights are being violated simply for expressing dissent or disagreement.
So are you confident, in the words of the President, William Ruto, when he said that his government will start working on curbing abductions in the country?
I think what we would like to see the President's words translate into it would be the release of all those that are currently missing. There are 29, and 10 of them are in the last 1 week. We would also want to see the arraignment of all officers that have been involved in unlawfully detaining Kenyans. And thirdly, we would want to see a signal that this would not happen again in future.
And we hope that governments will accede to what you're trying to do in terms of securing the release of those that have been arrested. Thank you so much, Irungu Houghton, Amnesty International Kenya Section Director in Nairobi, Kenya, for sharing this information with us. Talking business now, Ghana is moving towards fiscal discipline and macroeconomic stability after successfully restructuring 90% of its domestic and external debt. The government plans to reinstate the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which sets a fiscal deficit limit of 5% of GDP, reinforcing its commitment to fiscal consolidation. Databank research anticipates a steady improvement in fiscal indicators by the year 2025, driven by key initiatives like the medium-term revenue strategy and property tax reforms. Patrick Abankwa, financial analyst and investment advisor, shared his insights on Ghana's successful debt restructuring and implications of reinstating the fiscal responsibility law during his appearance on the Business Edge show.
The process was very tedious. It put strain on both investors and also the government. But I think along the line, the support of IMF to ensure that commitment and covenant that the government was making as part of the restructuring process were adhered to, gave confidence to these investors to perhaps continue with the process. And that has made us get to the level of the 90% subscription as we speak. I wouldn't say it has been one that is without challenge. And because if you look at the domestic program, it had so much impact on people that had invested, who mainly were the aged, and these people were enjoying from the fruit of their investment, which were fixed in bonds. And once this program kicked in, it affected their level of liquidity in terms of money that they...
In sports, Enyimba FC International has officially signed 2013 AFCON winner and former Super Eagles forward Brownie Deye to bolster their squad. The 36-year-old, who previously played for Ocean Boys in the 2006-2007 NPFL season, returns to the Nigerian League after an illustrious career. Deye signing aligns with a growing trend of former Super Eagles players, including Ahmed Musa and Shehu Abdullahi, returning to the domestic league. Enyimba, 9-time NPFL champions, had been assessing Deye during training sessions in recent weeks before finalizing the deal. We also tell you that AC Milan have appointed Sergio Conceição as their new head coach shortly after dismissing Paul Fonseca, who was sacked following the club's underwhelming Serie A campaign. Milan, currently 7th in the league and far from Champions League qualification, cited Fonseca's inability to challenge for the title as a reason for his departure. The club has struggled with inconsistent form, internal conflicts with senior players, and growing fan dissatisfaction. 50-year-old Conceição previously led Porto to multiple domestic titles and has Serie A experience as a former player for Lazio, Parma, and Inter Milan. His first game in charge will be on January 3 when Milan take on Juventus in the first leg of the semi-finals of the Italian Super Cup. The match will see Conceição manage against his son, Francisco, who plays for Juventus. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take a look at some of our major stories again. NNPCL announces 125,000 barrels per day Warri Refinery facility has commenced production. Rivers State Governor Fubara presents 1.1 trillion naira budget to Okojumbo-led assembly. We also told you that police fired tear gas at protest against abductions in Kenya. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Evo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekon Onobanjo.